Hi, I'm finally back from Europe to my home country, and the first thing upon arrival, apart from eating my, mother's food, of course, was watching the latest episode of HBO's The Last of Us Season 2. You know, I've been really critical about the show and the way that the direction that Craig Mazin chose, because I think that Craig Mazin fundamentally misunderstands the character of Elle and what motivates Elle. At least I thought like that. And I always defended the show because yes, the show is different from the game. It tells the same story but adds different stuff, tries to tell the story from a different angle, and I think this is good. We already have a video game, and we don't need one-to-one adaptation. Like we already have Disney's live-action remakes, like The Lion King or like Pinocchio, which most people absolutely hate precisely because these movies are meaningless because they tell exactly the same story as the original cartoon. So I always welcome when the adaptation changes a lot, including a movie adaptation of plays or books or something like that. But changing and misunderstanding are not one thing, are not exactly the same thing. And in my last video, I was precisely talking about how misunderstanding the character of Ellie, how not making her angry and obsessed with revenge was hurting the story, because this is the foundation of Ellie's arc and the foundation of the story. Ellie being completely mad, angry, and wanting and desiring to do anything, risking everything to take her revenge. But in the show, it's not like that, and now I think they kind of explained why they changed the direction. First of all, this episode was written by Neil Druckmann himself, who is the creator of the game, and Hallie Gross also co-wrote the second part with Neil Druckmann, and it shows there is a lot of love for these characters. Neil Druckmann was also a director of this episode, and there is a lot of great cinematography, many great cinematic shots, which I absolutely enjoyed. Overall, the episode was absolutely beautiful, and honestly, everything related to Jackson and Pedro Pascal's Joe was good in this season. Yes, I really liked the first 3 episodes, and this one, episode 6, is probably the best so far to me, even better than episode 2, or at least very close to episode 2. In my last video, I made an assumption that one of the reasons why the first episode was so good was because of Pedro Pascal's Joe. And to be honest, I think this is exactly true, because Pedro Pascal is a phenomenal actor, and I think this episode just proves that, because the porch scene was absolutely wonderful, and the camera focusing on Joe, on Pedro's face, and how he plays with face and nothing else, how the expression on his face changes, and this is an absolutely top quality, top tier level of acting, and Pedro Pascal absolutely killed the scene, and I really like the scene even more in the show, believe me or not. It was already absolutely great in the game, but it was even better in the show precisely because of Pascal's acting. And I think, and honestly, the second game honestly lacks Pedro Pascal. Imagine without him, even the first season would not be that good. I mean, the first season has a lot of problems, like it's really rushed, just like the season 2, but Pedro Pascal makes it work. I liked how they added this theme of the relationship between parents and children, how with each generation it should improve. Joe's father tells him that his own father treated him poorly, and that he treats Joe and Tommy a little better, and then Joe tries to treat Ellie, tries to be a better father to first Sarah and then to Ellie, unlike his father, and then he tells Ellie that she should be a better parent to her own children. And I think this explains exactly why Ellie is so happy to learn that Dina is pregnant, and you remember she was so enthusiastic. She was like, I'm gonna be a dad. Of course, in the game she was so obsessed and consumed by rage that she saw Dina's pregnancy as liability to her revenge quest, and got maybe not mad, but at least irritated and upset. But she was happy in the show, and this explains why. Exactly, because they chose this theme of the relationship between parents and children, and as the central theme of the story. I think this is the central theme of HBO's version of The Last of Us, of both seasons, all seasons, from Joel to Sarah, then Joel to Elle, and then Ellie to Dina's child. It's like this theme that even despite apocalypse or raiders and infected, we must fight for our family, for our children. And this is why the tone of this show is different from the game. The show is more hopeful. By having a child with Dina, Ellie hopes to fulfill Joel's last wish and become a better parent than he was. So that's why she's so happy that Dina is pregnant. It's completely different from the game, and they took this change. They made this change consciously. Craig Mazin, Neil Druckmann, and Haley Gross, they made this change consciously, and that's why I understand the show feels so different, and the character of Ellie is so different. We see this theme of becoming a better parent in Joel when she catches Ellie with the tattoo maker. He's pretty homophobic, right? He doesn't understand that. He doesn't understand that Ellie is homosexual, that she's a lesbian, and he refuses to accept that he scolds Ellie, but then eventually he accepts that, because despite not understanding that, he wants to become a better father, much better than his father was to him. So that's the central theme of this show, unlike in the game. But still, this certainly could have been written much better, and I think Neil Druckmann proved that this show could be absolutely fantastic, and I think the problem is it's Craig Mazin. The way Craig Mazin writes the relationship between Ellie and Dina, and Ellie is a character, I think he does it wrong, and I really wish that the whole Ellie's arc was written by Haley Gross and Neil Druckmann, by both of them, because there would not be The Last of Us Part 2 without Haley Gross, and I wish that Craig Mazin focused on Season 3, on Abby, on WLF's Scar's part, because almost everything we saw about Isaac and the WLF and the Scars was really good. The torture scene was really good, and I wish, and it's evidently Craig Mazin is more interested in that than in Dina and Ellie. So I wish it was that. So Craig Mazin is problem, in my opinion, which gives me hope for the next season, Season 3, which will be focused on Abby, on WLF, Scar's feud. I really hope that Craig Mazin will be able to pull it off like he did with Chernobyl, of creating this grim, dark, violent drama. So I have hope that Season 3 will be better. And so far, the Season 2 is still disappointing, but Episode 6 was absolutely great. And as I said again, somehow the porch scene was even better in the show, even though it was already almost perfect in the game. Yeah, but still I prefer the game. The Last of Us Part 2 is just a nearly perfect game in my opinion. And anyway, I'll be waiting for the last episode to see how the show will end, on a stronger note or not. And thanks for listening or watching, and see you again on this channel. Bye.